A lot of people are starting to hear about the Mediator release test, which is a food sensitivity test that can supposedly help you identify which foods might be causing inflammation and all the symptoms for you. So is the MRT test really any good, and will it help you? Let's talk about that today. Hello and welcome. My name is Heather Hall. I'm a registered dietitian turned joint pain nutrition expert after my own husband was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis a few years back. We first learned about the Mediator release test a few years ago after my husband was diagnosed with psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. Milder medications had stopped working, and we were really hesitant to start the heavier medications and all the side effects and risks that came along with them that my husband's doctor was recommending. So we researched other options and researched, and at one point my husband had asked me, "Do you think there's anything nutritional that we can do for this?" And my answer was, I don't know. In my research, I learned that supposedly food could be triggering his arthritis pain. But we had already at this point experimented with some elimination diets and even some food sensitivity testing, and none of it had really helped very much. We had wasted a lot of time at this point, and maybe I shouldn't say we had wasted time because it was a learning process along the way. We were learning what did and did not work. But by this point, he was in a lot of pain. His job, his hobbies, his home life were all beginning to take a back seat to his arthritis pain. And he was becoming a little bit tired of being my guinea pig with all my nutritional experiments while we tried to figure this out. And then I stumbled upon something called a Mediator release test, or MRT, from a fellow colleague. It was a food sensitivity test that was supposedly different than all of the other tests, and it promised to pin down my husband's food sensitivities with great accuracy and less of the blind experimentation that we had been doing so far. I decided to trust my colleague's advice and give food sensitivity testing one more chance. First of all, let's just back up for a minute though and talk about what a food sensitivity even is and why you might want to get a test for it. A food sensitivity occurs when your immune system decides that a certain part of the foods that you're eating is dangerous and decides to just mount a full-on attack against it. As you can imagine, this causes a lot of inflammation and even damage to your system and the different parts of your body that are being affected by this autoimmune attack over time. Food sensitivities usually don't appear until you have another silent condition going on called leaky gut. Leaky gut happens when your digestive system becomes damaged for one reason or another and essentially becomes leaky or holey and more porous due to things like tobacco, alcohol, ibuprofen, naproxen, and other NSAIDs, sugar and processed foods, steroid medications, birth control pills, stress, environmental toxins, and even certain food additives can cause your gut to become leaky. So once you have leaky gut going on, you can literally develop a food sensitivity reaction to just about anything. And it's almost impossible for people to pin down what their food sensitivities are without either a very strict and systematic elimination diet or an accurate food sensitivity test. And I'll talk about why food sensitivities are so hard to pin down here in just a minute. So this is why so many people are interested in food sensitivity testing. A lot of us sense that food has something to do with why we're feeling so crummy, even if we don't have necessarily digestive problems. But most people have a really hard time figuring out what those problem foods are. And that was the case with us too. We were really just tired of experimenting, and we just wanted somebody to just tell us what the problem foods are, and then we can come up with a plan. What's the difference between a food sensitivity and a food allergy? This is pretty important to understand. Both food sensitivities and food allergies can cause similar symptoms and problems in the body, but they're actually caused by kind of two totally different parts of your immune system. Food allergies are triggered by IgE antibodies, and an allergic reaction to something you eat is usually going to occur within minutes to a couple of hours of eating that food. So it's usually a lot easier to figure out what your food allergies are because they happen within a pretty short amount of time. And the effects of a food allergy are usually, not always, pretty obvious. Things like hives or blocked airways or a stomach ache, things like that, or even like a skin rash. Food sensitivities, on the other hand, are much harder to identify. They can be triggered by a number of different parts of your immune system, including IgG antibodies or IgM antibodies, or even a direct T-cell mediated reaction. Your symptoms can be delayed for up to 3 days after you've eaten the offending food, so that can make it almost impossible to track down what you've had within the past 3 days that might have caused it. And also, your symptoms can happen anywhere in the body. Remember, the offending food has leaked through that leaky gut and been exposed to that circulating immune system. So the reaction might not take place within your digestive system. It could happen, you might have a headache, you might have joint pain, you might have brain fog, or feel more tired than normal. There's really a long list of symptoms that a food sensitivity reaction could cause, and a lot of them seem totally unrelated to food. So that makes it really tricky. Because food sensitivities and food allergies are really caused by different parts of the immune system, a food allergy test is not going to pinpoint food sensitivities, and a food sensitivity test is not going to tell you what your food allergies are. They're two separate tests. So just because you had food allergy testing that came back negative doesn't mean that you maybe aren't sensitive to those foods, and a different part of your immune system could still be causing those reactions. So what is a mediator release test? A mediator release test is a food sensitivity test, and it helps you to pin down your immune system's unique food sensitivity reactions. It tests 170 different foods and chemicals that are commonly found in foods. It's a blood test performed by Oxford Laboratories. They use a different process than other food sensitivity companies. Most food sensitivity testing companies will test IgG. And if you remember, we just talked about how IgG is only one of the parts of your immune system that can react to food. There's also IgM and direct T-cell mediated reactions. What the mediator release test will catch is all of those different types of reactions, because what it's measuring is essentially the endpoint reaction of whether or not inflammatory chemicals were released, whether it was triggered by IgG, IgM, T cells. Doesn't really matter. It makes a lot more sense than any of the other methods that I've studied for testing food sensitivities, because it will catch every type of food sensitivity reaction. It will not catch food allergy reactions because those are not happening in your bloodstream, and this is a blood test. The mediator release test results are really clear and visually pleasing and easy to read, so I do really like that about them. They provide these organized color-coded bars with your results that lists each subcategory of foods and chemicals that they test kind of in order of your reaction to them. So it's really easy to just skim the list and visually see, okay, these foods down here are not good for me. These foods up here are good for me. I really liked this when we got these results for my husband, because it was very easy to see for him what was causing inflammation for his body and how much inflammation it was causing, and that was really motivating for him. You might have heard the LEAP diet talked about at the same time that you've heard the MRT or mediator release test. being talked about. So what the LEAP diet is basically is the individualized anti-inflammatory diet that's designed for you based off of your mediator release test, which is going to look different than an anti-inflammatory diet for anybody else that has taken the test, because your body has reacted to a different combination of foods than somebody else might have. And so a lot of times people want me to just tell them, hey, what should I eat for my arthritis? What's going to make me get better? But the answer is that it's going to look a little bit different for everybody, because I can't tell what your immune system has decided to react and cause inflammation and joint damage to. And so the mediator release test is really helpful in pinning that down. So your certified LEAP therapist that you're working with to order your test results will help you to design an anti-inflammatory protocol based off of your LEAP results. And most certified LEAP therapists report that their clients see about a 70% improvement in symptoms just within the first 2 weeks, and then slower improvement gradually after that. LEAP drastically reduces the inflammation going on in your body by temporarily removing those foods that are causing inflammation for you. This seems to really work very well, because when you remove those foods that is causing damage to your gut lining over and over again when you eat them, it gives your gut a chance to heal. And if you're feeding yourself well and you're removing those offending foods from your diet for a time, the gut actually can heal really quick. So did the mediator release test and LEAP diet work for us? So his joint pain greatly improved within about 2 weeks of starting the LEAP diet, and within about a month, his arthritis was pretty much completely gone. He didn't really have any symptoms left of the arthritis. This was a really exciting breakthrough for us after months and months of experimenting and trying different things and not making a ton of progress. And the other really great thing is that he also saw a ton of unexpected side benefits, such as no more heartburn, reduced migraines, and improved energy. And that's the wonderful thing about using food as medicine, is that instead of coming with a long list of side effects, it comes with this amazing long list of side benefits. The mediator release test continues to this day to be the single most effective thing that we have done for his arthritis pain. After sufficient healing had occurred, we were able to start reintroducing foods back into his diet that he was initially reactive to without it causing his joint pain to return. I do want to make it really, really clear that just taking the MRT test and doing the LEAP diet alone is not going to be enough for most people to put their arthritis into remission. You really need to work with a certified LEAP therapist. He or she can help you to address the other root causes that are going on behind your arthritis. For my husband, some of his root causes included dysbiosis, a Candida albicans overgrowth, a viral infection, and stress. These were all issues that we needed to figure out and treat in order for long-term healing to occur for him, and for him to be able to introduce those reactive foods back into his diet without it causing problems again. Thankfully, there were a lot of natural diet and lifestyle treatments that I was able to do with him to help him to work through all of those problems. So it's really important to work with a professional that knows what she's doing and help you to just sort through all of the mess that is going on and that seems so muddled and confusing to you. They'll be able to make sense of it, and they'll be able to give you a clear step-by-step plan for what you need to do to get better. And if you have a joint pain condition like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, fibromyalgia, and you're looking for a certified LEAP therapist and dietitian that's an expert in that condition, I would love to help you get to the root causes of what's going on and teach you how to eat your way back to health. Other food sensitivity tests are a dime a dozen. There's dozens, maybe even hundreds of different labs that perform them. They're really cheap in comparison to the more quality mediator release test. And they typically only test for IgG antibodies and base your test results off of that. And there's a lot of problems with that. Just because you have IgG antibodies to a certain food doesn't mean that food is actually causing inflammation for you. IgG can actually be a marker of food tolerance, and you're most likely to have lots of IgG to the foods that you eat most often, and that could just mean that your body has decided that that food is okay. The other problem with IgG tests is that it's going to miss a lot of the food sensitivities you have. And so you might not feel that much better by following your IgG test results, because you might have reactions that are being triggered by your T cells or other different types of antibodies, and you're not going to know that from an IgG test. We actually tried an IgG test for my husband before doing the MRT, and our experience was that he came back highly reactive to all of the foods that he was just eating most often on that test. And it was a really difficult diet for him to follow because, of course, he had to cut out everything he normally ate according to that test. Also, after about 6 weeks of following it, he really didn't feel that much better, and so we just didn't find it to be very helpful. When we began doing the mediator release test and LEAP diet, on the other hand, he was still able to eat a lot of the foods that he loved, and he also saw results really quickly. For all of these reasons, I actually never recommend an IgG food sensitivity test to people anymore. If you're gonna do a food sensitivity test, then you definitely need to go with a mediator release test. After discovering how well the mediator release test worked for my own husband, of course, I began using it in my practice with my other clients. And the results for all of them were just similarly amazing. But I have also developed over the years of researching and working with people a unique 4-phase approach to improving joint pain with food. And the LEAP and MRT is really just one phase of that 4-phase plan. So it's really important to me that I help my clients to achieve long-term healing. So one of my clients is named Sarah, and she suffered from rheumatoid arthritis. And I want to share her story to give you hope that it did actually take her 8 weeks before she really noticed much difference following her LEAP diet. And I was so proud of her for sticking with it for that long without seeing much results. But the great news is that 2 years later, she is symptom-free from her rheumatoid arthritis. She has had no symptoms of it for 2 years. Isn't that amazing? Another client of mine named Mindy had suffered from fibromyalgia for decades. She'd been on medications for it. None of them really seemed to help that much. And every day she was just in intense muscle pain, joint pain, fatigue. Her symptoms began to improve really quickly. She also dropped a lot of weight that she had been unable to lose for a long time. And she actually eventually discontinued her medications that she was on without any increase in symptoms. And her pain, her energy, all of the other symptoms that tend to go along with arthritis and fibromyalgia were all so drastically improved. Fleur also suffered from fibromyalgia for several decades, and like Mindy, medications really didn't seem to make that much difference for her. She would make it through the pain and the stiffness from her fibromyalgia each day by basically doing high-dose ibuprofen. That was the only thing that seemed to help. After a couple weeks of following my program, she started to feel a lot better. She began to lose weight. Her energy improved, and she was no longer needing those daily doses of ibuprofen in order to get through the day. So these are just a few examples of many people who have been able to greatly improve their joint pain and a lot of other symptoms using the mediator release test, the LEAP diet, and food as medicine. So will the mediator release test help you? You'll never know unless you try it, but I can say from my own experience and the experience of my clients has been very effective. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you'd like to see more videos with tips on how you can improve joint pain using food.